Okay, so Google just dropped a phone that I actually like. Yeah, so this Monday Google dropped their Google Pixel 4a. I mean, no surprise, everyone knows about the Google Pixel 4a by now. It's being leaked to death. We've even seen billboards advertising the Pixel 4a before its announcement. So this was certainly no surprise, but it's just great that now it's here. So this video is not a review. I don't have a Google Pixel 4a. This is just my reaction and impressions of the spec list, and I'm just going to be reacting to them and giving you an overview of the features. So I'm going to start by talking about the build of the phone. It has a plastic body, which I actually have nothing but good things to say about because, first of all, I mean, it's cheaper than glass. It's probably the main reason they put it on the Google Pixel 4a. But other than that, it's much more shatter resistant than glass, which is definitely a great big W for Google because I'm sure people that are buying the Google Pixel 4a definitely don't want to break their phone, and they probably care a lot more about shatter resistance than scratch resistance. So yeah, definitely I want to see plastic be put on more phones. Even on flagships, I would love to see a high quality polycarbonate maybe, as it's much more shatter resistant. Other features you'll find on the Pixel 4a is a fingerprint reader on the back if they can't put it under display. That, in my opinion, is a great place to put it. They could have put it on the power button, but I think the back is fine as well. The Google Pixel 4a has stereo speakers, which at that price it's great. It's only rivaled by the iPhone SE basically, as well as having a headphone jack, which I'm not the biggest fan of, but if they can include it, it's great. And I'm sure that the average consumer would be really happy that they have a headphone jack. Now I'm going to talk about the battery of the Google Pixel 4a. It has a 3140 milliamp hour cell, which is actually greater than the Google Pixel 4, the one that starts at like $800. Yeah, it has a better battery than that. Not the first thing, this phone is better than the Google Pixel 4. Oh yeah, and also this phone supports fast charging and actually includes the power adapter in the box. Something we might not see on a phone that is going to be triple its price. Okay, now for the display. It actually has a much better looking design than the Google Pixel 4 in my opinion because, I mean, first of all, it doesn't have those stupid Project Sully hand gesture sensors because definitely I think Google has realized that was a gimmick, and I'm sure it's going to be ditched by the Google Pixel 5. So yeah, the display is actually a higher screen to body ratio than the Google Pixel 4, and actually I think looks much better than the Google Pixel 4. It's a 5.8-inch display, which is a great size for most people because most people prefer a smaller display, which 5.8-inch isn't that small, but it's still relatively small compared to the 7-inch phones we're getting in 2020. It's a 1080p panel with 60 Hz. I can't really complain about 1080p. Most people can't tell the difference between that and Quad HD, but 60 Hz, they could have probably pushed it to 90. I mean, OnePlus Nord has a high refresh rate, but you can't really blame Pixel 4a for having a 60 Hz refresh rate when it's rumored that the $1,100 iPhone 12 Pro Max will still not have it. Other features of the display include a always-on display, which I don't really use on my phone, but I can understand why people would like that. So yeah, the display on the Pixel 4a is definitely above satisfactory. It looks great for the price, and definitely not a weakness of the phone. I'd go as far as to say it's one of the advantages. Now I get to a part which is probably the main weakness of the phone. It's the performance and specs. This phone is rocking a Snapdragon 730G processor, which is no slouch. It's an octa-core processor, and it also comes with the Adreno 618 GPU. So nothing really that striking on the spec sheet, but from the reviews I've watched of the Pixel 4a, it does seem that the performance is pretty lackluster. Man, something about Google and performance just don't go together. For the RAM and storage, it only comes in one configuration, and that's with 6 GB of RAM and 128 GB of storage. I'm particularly impressed by how they've had 128 GB as a base configuration. It's definitely something I would like to see on more phones. 6 GB of RAM is definitely good for a phone of that price, so no complaints there. Now we go to the flagship part of the Google Pixel 4a, and that's the camera. This has been the main selling point of the Google Pixel 3a, as well as the rest of the Pixel phones. And the camera system of the Google Pixel 4a is definitely one of the best for its price point. The only bad thing I would say about it is that it only comes with one main wide lens, no ultra wide or telephoto. I'm okay with them not including like stupid sensors that people like OnePlus and Xiaomi include just to say that they have a quad camera setup, like a 2 megapixel macro lens, which, as Marquez said...
Do I miss the 2 megapixel macro camera? No!
But definitely it would have been great to see an ultra-wide at this price point. I certainly think Google could have made it happen. Even if it wasn't the highest quality sensor, I'm sure their software could have made it look great. Now, the one lens that they do have is pretty good. It's a 12.2 megapixel sensor with an aperture of f1.7, which is probably great for low light, especially with all of Google's software in night mode. It has optical image stabilization, and it can do video at 4K at 30, as well as 1080p at 128 frames per second. It would have been great to see 4K at 60 on this phone, as we've seen it on the iPhone SE, but video does not seem to be a great focus of the Pixel phones. The whole smartphone market seems to have fallen behind Apple in this field. I mean, Google still hasn't made a phone that can record 4K at 60, while Apple has been doing this since the iPhone 8 of 2017, so definitely the video could be better. Now, the front-facing camera is nothing special. It's an 8 megapixel sensor that can do video at 1080p at 30 frames per second. But with Google's software, it probably looks great. So I've been comparing this phone to the OnePlus Nord and the iPhone SE throughout this whole video. But do remember that this phone actually starts at $350, undercutting both the iPhone SE at $400 and the OnePlus Nord also at $400. And you might think that the $50 is not that big of a jump, but at the low price point that Google and these companies are aiming for, $50 could make a huge difference, and that's exactly what Google had in mind. I'm sure Google wanted to price this at $400, but reacting to the iPhone SE and the OnePlus Nord, they decided to do it at $350, and I'm glad they did. That's what I think about the Google Pixel 4a. I personally wish Google would make more phones like the Pixel 4a, and I think Google should really focus on making budget phones because they're clearly pretty good at it. And as for the flagships, I think they should just stop making flagships. I mean, I could say they could do this to make it better, but the main thing Google needs to do is make cheaper phones. So definitely the Pixel 4a is a step in the right direction for Google. Let me know what you think in the comments. See you in the next video.